To say people have been divided on this topic is quite the understatement. The amount of arguments in the comment sections is pretty crazy, but understandably so. In this video I will refer a lot to some recent statistics that Rurikhan showed in his video on RNG Charms and decorations. So if you're interested, check out his video as well. If we compare the two options, here's what you get. RNG Charms and crafted decorations will give certain skills guaranteed, but lower the chance for a perfect build. RNG Decos and crafted charms will have a higher chance for that perfect build, but with no skills guaranteed. The people that are in favor of RNG decorations see the low chances to obtain a perfect charm and go, nah, I don't want to deal with that. I want that perfect build. And I'm never going to get that with this system. People that prefer the RNG charms realize that they need craftable decos to be able to securely obtain skills, particularly build specific skills, and usually see the charms as just a nice bonus, not as something mandatory. You can see how each different approach divides them into two groups. Now statistically speaking, charms are indeed not mandatory for a good build, as decorations are an objectively bigger part of builds, especially since we got so many decoration slots now, giving charms a smaller role. It's probably only 1/6 of your build in Rise and even less in World, where in the older games it wouldn't be rare to see charms that were up to a quarter of a build. The only situation where a perfect charm would be mandatory to finish a particular build would be one where you try to get as much damage as possible. Because if you just want to get the skills you need for your weapon plus a couple of damage and comfy skills, the armor skills combined with decorations will be enough. And yet, according to Rurikhan's statistics, more people want RNG decorations now than ever before. Here we see his old and his new poll side by side. RNG Charms were far ahead with 78% of the votes in favor versus a nearly 50-50 now. You would expect this to be the opposite considering that decorations play a bigger role now, making RNG decos harder to deal with in the newer games. But we also need to realize that this poll is merely an indicator, and obviously not 100% accurate if you just want to know if people prefer RNG Charms or RNG Decos, as this poll was purely Rise's system versus World's system. Now personally I would say I didn't really like either of them, but I would vote RNG Charms when I think back to games like 4 Ultimate or Generations Ultimate. Obviously, the newer the game, the more new people will vote on these polls, and those people may have never even experienced the older charm system. Regardless of that, it's still obvious that there's been an increase of people who prefer RNG decorations. So why do more people want RNG decos now? And why were people fine with RNG charms back in the day? Well, I think that there are several reasons, but one of them is that back in the day, people didn't know what the odds were to get a good charm. They didn't go online as much to find out what the best charms were. They got one they liked and they were perfectly happy with it. This was no problem because being extremely optimal wasn't a priority for many, but nowadays it is for a lot more people. More and more people want to deal the most amount of damage possible. This is not just Monster Hunter, it's basically every game. There's been an absolute massive shift in the way we approach games, where playing meta and getting the absolute best build possible is the most important thing.
But Dusk, what's wrong with that?
Well, nothing, until it starts to become more important than having fun. I sometimes wonder if people even realize that they are developing an obsession to the point where they walk right by their initial goal. But I digress. It is true that with RNG decorations, getting that perfect build is more likely to happen. But you still need to put in tremendous amounts of time to achieve this, far more than the average player ever will. You're also sacrificing good builds for most of the game until you get to the point where you finally have obtained a good amount of decorations to consistently get good builds. As long as we have to choose between RNG decorations and RNG charms, we are basically choosing between hardcore players or everybody else. Considering the relatively small amount of players that play hardcore, it wouldn't make any sense to pick RNG decorations. This is besides the fact that people obsessed with getting the best builds possible are likely to end up modding in any charm or decoration they need anyways. So it would be silly to give that priority and then have some Lance player not be able to block some attacks because Guard Up is an RNG deco, for example.
But Dusk, we could have the system where you meld your decos you really need.
Right, but that would mean we need a way around the system to make the system work. What is even the point of having RNG at all then? If I look at all the Monster Hunter games I've played, I like the older system the most, where you would get charms after pretty much any quest, allowing you to hunt whatever you wanted. I think this was the biggest mistake that Monster Hunter Rise made. That sacrificing material system was extremely tedious in comparison. The shitty charm system in Rise is one of the reasons some people don't want random charms, because Rise's system was tedious. But what they really mean is, I don't want to go to the melder after every quest or so. And that's fine, but that doesn't mean you don't want RNG charms. It just means Rise's system to obtain charms was bad, which I agree with. Also, some people mention that charm management is a pain, but the decoration management without all the quality of life changes in World would have been a pain as well. They could do things like automatically overriding charms that are objectively better, just to name something. So I think that this could be easily solved with some quality of life changes. Then there were some people who said, I liked gradually building up my armor skills with the decoration system. Well, if we have craftable decos that are monster material specific, you could only unlock certain decos after fighting certain monsters, still giving you that gradual progression as you fight new monsters throughout the story, which is exactly how it was before, by the way. And technically speaking, this is even more gradual than the deco system, as with this system you can't just get lucky and receive exactly the decos you need right from the get-go. Now personally, I wouldn't mind it if everything was craftable, but I do agree that some sort of RNG would be fun as long as this is manageable. But even then, RNG Charms have the upper hand, as those actually got people to play different builds, especially in the older titles. And considering that you can get all decos by playing hardcore, this kinda defeats the purpose of having RNG in the first place. The developers no doubt intended the RNG to incentivize you to experiment and play different builds, as you might not get what you want for your particular build, but you might get something amazing for another build that you've never even tried. RNG Charms also make more sense if we keep Monster Hunter's philosophy in mind. You hunt a water monster for the water deco and a fire monster for the fire decos. It's how it's always been because it's common sense. This is besides the fact that it adds to the immersion, and it gives you a reason to fight certain monsters. Build variety is more important than dealing the most amount of damage possible, as hardcore players can still have fun with a build that is 90% optimal, where a casual player's fun will severely be diminished as he is unable to play a certain weapon because of build specific skills only obtainable through RNG, completely limiting build variety. If we add this all up and we compare it now, we have RNG decos, better for hardcore players, mostly speedrunners, who are likely to use mods regardless of which system they get, where RNG Charms will lead to more build variety, more incentive to make new builds, more incentive to hunt certain monsters, more immersion, and is overall just better for the majority of the player base. I was fine with RNG decos as I will enjoy any Monster Hunter game, but no matter how many times I go over this and how many times I try to look at it from the RNG deco people's perspective, every time I add the up and down sides and compare the two, I end up with RNG Charms as the better option. It just doesn't make sense to prioritize hardcore players' endgame over a casual player's game, just to then have everybody running the exact same endgame builds just because it's the most optimal, while taking away incentive to make new builds, hunt certain monsters, all while losing some immersion and variety. It looks like in Monster Hunter Wilds, RNG decorations are making a return, but I assume the developers will have learned from Monster Hunter World, so hopefully they will at least have improved the system, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm pretty sure it'll be fun anyways. Let me know if you prefer RNG decos or RNG Charms in the comments, or perhaps even no RNG at all, but keep it civil. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and thanks for watching.
Go to hell! Come here! Get over here! Get your face! Stay away from me! You keep him away from me! Oh, you gotta get it done! You little bitch! You little get over here! What are you? You and I'm gonna fall right in the neck!
All right, that's enough, you two! This is serious! Stop it!
Get it done! You